This is the Roller Coaster Podcast, and I'm your host, Lucy Q. Life is a wild ride. It has twists and turns. It's scary, exciting, and downright fun. So throw your head back, arms in the air, and come along with me for the ride.
Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby. I wanna ride.
You have a lot of life to live between now and retirement. Do you have a plan? Or are you living on a wish and a prayer that magically it'll all work out? Maybe you've thought about talking to somebody, or just the thought of that scare the crap out of you. Today's guest, Lisa Brumm, of My Financial Girlfriend, provides a shame-free zone and takes the conversations about money into a chat with girlfriends. Hi, Lisa.
Hello, Lucy. Thank you for having me.
This is great. Money is a topic that it's still so taboo,
Yes, it is.
but you really can't get around life without talking about or dealing with money.
Not, if you want to live on the grid, then yes, I think you have to talk about it.
But even
And it's
if
probably
you're,
what gives me job security. Sorry about that.
but even if you're not living on the grid, you still need some sort of currency at some point in time.
Exactly. And resources. Yes, I agree. But yes, I think there's a lot of emotion around money, right? All kinds of emotion, anxiety and stress and happiness when you have, a plethora. And I just think all of the emotions that get tied up with money really dictate some of our behaviors.
Definitely. And for me, I've gotten more comfortable with saying I don't have a clue when it comes to money. I know some things, but you would have thought I'm almost 50. You would have thought by now I would have picked up a couple of things along the way. And I do. I mean, obviously, when it comes to dealing with your mortgage and things like the interest rates, you understand that. But I also, I can still remember going and getting your first mortgage or talking to the bank about things. They don't exactly include women in the conversation very well.
No, they don't. And that's what I get really big rant about. I get really I tirade.
Well, you rant away.
My soapbox, if you will. But yeah, you're right. I think there's a lot of things that are systemic, right? They're just kind of built into the different industries and different ways that we've kind of put these things in a box, right? So like when women go to purchase big ticketed items, and more women are doing that nowadays than they did even just 10 years ago. So some women are out making incomes more than their partners. And so I think the tide is changing, thankfully, but I think there's women like me out there making a few little rants about how women are being ignored in this, especially in the financial, and from my perspective, because I am in the financial industry, I see that more and more, and it drives me crazy. And I think that we're not given credit for critical thinking, and just as even what you were saying, Lucy, about that, a few things, but you feel that there's still kind of a gap, or there's just some information you're not really privy to. And I think that's also an unfortunate systemic problem, is because a lot of the financial industry, especially here in the United States, is that men are predominantly those that are the investors, the advisors, the financial planners, and, they're going to talk to the breadwinner. And typically in the generations, above us, because I'm 57, I think men just prefer to talk to other men. And so whether you're sitting there listening, but if you have a question, it usually gets answered directed towards the guy. And I just think that there's some behaviors there that really need to be made more aware of. So hopefully women can then now sit themselves at the table and have these great conversations. And it should not be hard. It's not rocket science, I can tell you that. But we also have been maybe not encouraged to understand finances or numbers or math or science as much as men. And so we also kind of get pushed off into creative classes or writing classes, right? Instead of understanding, it's, to me, it's a bunch of math, and we have plenty of calculators that help us get there.
But I mean, traditionally, if you sort of go back several decades, it was the men that were earning the money and the women were
Exactly.
staying at home. And typically the women were given their grocery budget or their housekeeping budget, and that's what they managed. And then the man took care of everything else. But of course, over time, women are in the workplace. We're there 50-50 with men. And I think it's just taking a little bit of time for the financial industry to catch up
Catch up.
to us and to
Yeah,
also understand that, I mean, let's face it, how you talk to a man is just not the same way you talk to a woman. And that's not, it's not anything to do with intellect. It's just how we perceive things.
exactly. Yeah, it's women, and I'll say that, what I feel, my DNA is that I want to know all about the financial resources, and I did that even as a teenager. I was the kid that was selling the candy to go on the band trip, and I was the kid magazines, knocking on doors of our neighbors and doing the sales so that I could get to go do stuff with my groups, right? And I was the kid selling the lemonade on the corner, and I was just always like wanted to be in and meeting people and doing stuff and earning some little side money. I mean, as an 11-year-old, even having $1 was a big deal, going to the store to get a bunch of candy,
I was gonna
right?
say you could get a
And
lot with $1 when we were kids. Like,
exactly, it was the penny candy. You
yeah,
just
bag of
scoop it all
chips.
up and
Yeah.
yeah. So there was always that industrious or entrepreneurial, I don't know what it is, but that little DNA in me that's like, let's go set up a TV tray and get a pitcher of lemonade and have little Dixie cups and we're ready to go. And so yeah, I think that those that of us that were encouraged, or maybe accounting is better suited, or being a bookkeeper, and again, those are great professions, but I just feel that that yeah, being the biggest myth that I'm finding, especially with women in financial services, is that well, you don't make as much money, so I'm not going to pursue you as a client. I'm not going to actively reach out and try to get you as a client. I'm going to go for the big whales that have lots of zeros and commas. When in fact, most women are either keeping up in certain professions, keeping up with that of men, but even maybe surpassing that of men, because some men tend to want to stay home and take care of the kids or work from home and and allow their spouse to make more money, which is again, so we have to break some of these myths. And I really want to break down some of the barriers, because I think women also, when they come visit with me, is like, oh, I don't know enough. I go, I bet you pay your bills. And I bet, if you're making income, you may just not know all the tricks, but you probably know enough, and you're probably not giving yourself credit. And that's the other thing, is that when women tend to downplay their skills sometimes. And I think you're just not giving yourself credit, because I think you know more than you probably think you do. It's just hasn't been verbalized yet.
That, or the terminology that they're using to describe something is, it's something basic that we're doing every day, but there's some, fancy word attached to it. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, it's like talking Starbucks, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
I mean, you have to have the coined phrases, or you be able
Yeah.
to say the right way in the right stack and order, and yeah, I mean, I think that's why you need somebody like a financial girlfriend to be able to give you all the financial pieces, but also be the girlfriend that will hand you a tissue box or give you a hug, whatever you need, right? And just be able to listen and see it from your point of view, and help and guide and educate along the way.
And one of the things that you do is you have money hacks, because ultimately we probably have more money than we think we do. It's just how we're looking at it or how we're working with it. So, what are some of your money hacks that you have for finding extra money every month that we can then use to invest?
Well, that to me is my biggest joy that I get, because I love, metaphorically blowing people's minds. I love the idea that, they're looking at their budget, I'm looking at their budget, and I just found them $300 and they didn't even know that it was there. And so one of the money hacks, especially, is in, well, there's two big ones, and to find larger dollars is looking in your fixed reoccurring bills that happen every month. And one of them is actually how we as Americans pay taxes. You get a paycheck, it already has taken the federal taxes out. If you're in a state that has a state income tax, so all those taxes come out first, and then you get what's left over, right? Well,
Yeah.
a lot of times, and there's another statistic, but most Americans would rather get a large refund, have paid money forward all throughout the year in their paychecks, and then wait for that $3,000 refund or whatever it's going to be. And because they don't want, for fear of having to pay $3,000 come April 15th. So what I do is we'll look at that, and there's actually a calculation that you can get from the irs.gov website that exactly tells you what your federal tax bill should be based on how much income you're making. And with some other variables, we can come pretty close. In fact, my brother challenged me once because he heard me talking about don't overpay your taxes forward, but kind of come in at a point that's even. Because then you have more money to stash away or pay down debt or do whatever you want to do with it. And yeah, my brother got it down to, like I said, I can get him within a couple $100, within the range. And he went even a little bit step further, and he was really excited that he got like a refund check of 45 cents. And I'm like, well, that's on you.
It's true. It's the money is better off in your pocket, because if you have the money in your pocket, you can invest it monthly and be getting a return on it. But if you wait until, probably by the time you get a check, it's the same in Canada. Yeah. If you wait for that refund check, government's not going to be giving you interest on that money because it took an extra $200 12 months ago.
Right. And what we here in you, I don't know what your deadlines are, but we have April 15th. So you've paid it all January through December. And then you wait until, some people wait till the 15th, but if you're filing in January, that's, 13 months have gone by before you actually even get any benefit.
Yeah. And then you've got to wait. And then I'm guessing most people are doing that because they want that refund check, because that's summer vacation, or that's,
right.
The renovations to the house, or that's, they're going to spend it. They're not actually looking at investing it. So if number one, one is looking at your fixed bills, what's another one? What's your second one?
Another area that I typically find a lot of extra cash that isn't going into your benefit is when people pay their credit cards. So, and it's usually the big commercial banks that have the credit card companies that are doing this. But in the United States in 2000, there was a bill that was introduced and passed for 2001 called the Federal Credit Act. And in that bill that's, 5 feet deep, there was a couple sentences that said that the credit card companies could take the year interest rate, say it was 12%, they would divide it by 12 months. So it'd be 1% against your outstanding balance every month. And that's the interest that you were paying. In 2001, the formula switched, and now the 12% was divided by 365 days. So now it becomes a fractional percentage,
daily interest?
Daily interest compounded for 30 days.
That doesn't sound like a good deal.
It's not for the consumers,
people,
but it's great for tall buildings looking over New York City.
Oh, crap.
So what happens is that as Americans, now in my generation, I remember my mom like, oh, I'm going to send him an extra $100. And she actually got $100 wiped off the principal, right?
Yeah.
What happens with daily interest, it's an algorithm now that when you have to send in your $75 minimum payment and you, I'll round it up to 100 and throw an extra $25 on top of it, they're actually getting more interest because it's all counted as $100 payment, interest paid first. And then they pay so your $25 looks like, $2 to principal. I'm making these numbers up, and maybe $22 or $23 going to interest, including the interest that they just calculated. So the idea is that you can force a principal only payment if you break it up into two separate payments. You pay the minimum honored before the due date, and then you just wait 1 or 2 days, because now they can only count 1 or 2 days of interest against your next payment. And most of it now goes to principal, and only fractional amount goes to the interest, because they can only collect what's accrued against you.
Wow. No,
Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy. I don't think it's like that in Canada.
Okay.
Although, like,
well,
I
you guys
know,
are lucky.
well, I know, but I mean, yeah, you say that. You haven't seen
We
our
can look
tax.
at your statements.
You haven't seen
Yeah,
our
because I have
taxes.
people. Yeah, I have people who will bring in their statements where they have been paying $100 or $200 extra, and they just feel. I ask them, "Do you ever feel like your balance is ever going down, even if you're not using the card?" And they go, "No, it always hangs out around 3,000. I can never get it down. How am I doing? What am I doing?" And I look at their past previous statements, and we see that most of it's getting eaten up in interest, and only very little of it is going to the principal on the extra payment.
Jeez, that's a good one that I bet you a lot of people aren't aware of.
Yes. And women tend to round up. Like, I'd rather write a check for $100 even than just $75,
Yeah.
right? So we
Or
do
like
tend
if
to
it's
round
pennies, like if
Yeah.
it's like 76.95 or 25,
Mhm.
I always do the full dollar. I don't like
Yeah.
odd numbers.
Yeah, we're
Is that
all
a
like,
woman thing?
it is, and they know that. They also knew that women tend to use credit cards more than men. There's this whole thing about women and money, which is it's a philosophy, it's a psychology, and it's human behavior with money, but mostly women have some very cool, in my opinion, idiosyncrasies, things that we think that we're doing better and trying to get ahead of things, when in fact we're being, we don't even know what we're really battling.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so after we look at our fixed bills, after we understand our credit cards and how they're charging us interest,
Yes.
what's another thing that we could look at?
I have a really good trick, if money hack, if you will, and I will give my son full credit. He's 29 years old now, but when he was 13, he signed up to be an umpire for the Little League baseball here in our neighborhood, and they gave him some forms. They were having him do a direct deposit to his bank. Now he's 13. He does not have a checking account, although I probably would sign up for one. But I said, honey, just put in your, just do the check the box savings, and here's your account number. Here's the routing number. They'll just automatically pay you, and it'll go direct deposit into your savings. So, but he has kept that as an adult. And so every time he gets paid now, he goes, Mom, that's where I want the money to hang out anyway. So why don't I just have it all go to my savings? And I know how much my rent is. I know how much my car insurance is. And I'll just move over exactly what I need to cover all my bills for the month. And most of my money now is hanging out in savings. And the he's got quite a big of a savings because he just thinks that it's a no-brainer. Why wouldn't people just automatically put it into their savings account if ultimately that's where you want it to be first? And he feels really good because it gets deposited. He moves over what he needs to. He knows that the auto pays are coming out, or what he needs to write a check for. He knows what he uses cash, kind of like the old envelope system, for his food and his gas money. And the kid's got, tens of thousands of dollars sitting in his savings account as his cushion. But he's looking to buy a house, and he's doing it all the right ways. So that's one of my biggest money hacks. And it's the most simplest thing to do, is just, it might take a little adjustment, but if you get all your direct deposits to the place where you really want that money to hang out, it's good. Instead of hanging out in your checking account and then just happen to buy this or buy that because it's there, it's kind of evaporating out of your awareness. And so what we do is have purpose and intention around our savings, and it's going to help you more because it gives you kind of this inner feeling of like, oh wow, this is cool, I got money in my savings account.
So if we find, say we go through these 3 steps and we find an extra $300-$400 a month with it, what should we do with it?
Well, I won't help someone think about investing until they've put it have a nice, healthy cushion in their savings account, even if it's at a bank or credit union.
How much do they have?
Healthy could be 3 to 6 months worth of your living expenses. I mean, we're finding through the pandemic that, yes, we cut down on a lot of expenses because we're all staying at home and just hanging out and watching Netflix. but what we are finding is that there was discretionary. There was more than I didn't spend more than I made, and I really do have extra savings. So, and it may have gotten you through, because I'm in Oregon. Here in Oregon, the unemployment department was months behind in paying people. So they needed to still have rent to pay, right? Or mortgage payments to make. And so that kind of helped fill that gap. But now getting it filled back up is the number one priority. So I think, yeah, 3 to 6 months is kind of a benchmark or a rule of thumb that someone should go by to have I call it ATMable, right? Because bad things kind of happen over 3-day weekends. And if your plumbing's going out, you need to go get somebody there and be able to pay them quickly. And so having access to quick cash. Now the downside of that is you're not earning much on that money, right? You're going to just let it sit there and it kind of doesn't earn anything, or very little than 1% here in the United States. So yeah, I think that's a good benchmark. Now, once you over that, maybe 5 months, 6 mark, you can start planning on other places to put it. And that's where the investments or places like increasing your retirement through work could also give you more cash, because you're actually decreasing how much you owe in federal income taxes when you add more money into your retirement. So there's a lot of little tweaks, I call them, just little tiny money hacks that you can find extra savings, be able to then figure out what your goals are and what targets and what are the things that are coming up that you want to start planning and putting that money aside for.
And it's funny because I always thought that in order to work with, a financial person, I would need to have, I just thought that I'd need to have all this extra money. Like you said, the ones, the zeros and the commas and the decimals. I thought I needed that money before anyone would give me, I don't know where I got that idea from.
But everybody thinks that, Lucy. Everybody thinks that. And I want to make that a number 2 myth buster, because I can tell you that when I was opening accounts or retirement accounts for anyone, most mutual fund companies is where you would hang out for retirement type money. They can start an account with $1,000 and doing $50 a month auto drafting. So you don't have to have. Now, where you probably got that idea is through media, and a lot of the male-driven, egotistical type of philosophy is that, oh, I only work with people who have at least $250,000 in it, so they can invest it today. Now that only, it benefits everyone, but still, you're discounting so many people who don't have 250,000 sitting in their savings account to work with an advisor. So my number one principle of my company is everyone who produces income, and it doesn't matter if it's $1,000 a month or $100,000 a month. It means that you deserve the right to work with a financial professional, and it doesn't mean that you have to have so much net worth or you have to be at a certain income bracket or anything like that. I think that's one of the biggest fallacies that our industry has portrayed to people. And I think it's really very dysfunctional, almost, negligent.
It is, because essentially what it's doing is it's pushing the largest part of the population out of the conversation when they're probably the ones that need to have it the most.
Exactly. I say that a lot. Like you've adulted your way to this point, but now once you know that the financial girlfriend's around, how much better could it be? How many more little tweaks could we make so that you have more to make decisions with?
So how do you empower women so that they find their financial voice and they start leaning into this conversation?
I think knowledge is power, right? And the more I can, I love talking to somebody, and especially now with Zooms and everything, and I'll say something and they'll start Googling it, and then they'll go, wait a minute, she's right. So I think just knowledge.
You're lying?
Yeah, or just wanted to prove, there's some kind of like, that doesn't sound right, Lisa. That interest thing on the credit card, how can that's criminal, is what they'll say to me. And I'll go, let's just look at your statements and let's see what it actually is coming in at. And I'll say, like I said, most of that on the credit card, going back to that, is the bigger commercial national banks and financial institutions are using that tactic. But the more knowledge you have, I think that in itself just makes you sit up a little straighter, and you just feel a little bit more like, oh, I got this. This isn't that hard, or I got some decisions to make here, right? And so I think the more information, and I tend to find that women advisors just want to share knowledge. Like if I share knowledge with you, you're going to come back and tell me that you want to open that type of an account or this type of an account, because now you know what your situation is, you see what the facts are, and you're going to know what fits right with your what your goals are and what you want to accomplish. So I have no secrets. I want to tell people exactly what's going on, and I want to be their cheerleader, or like I said, or the pat them on the back, and now let's take the ground and start moving forward again, because everybody can make a misstep or feel like they, I during the pandemic I heard people say that they had to put their rent on a Visa card. I go, don't feel bad about it. Don't feel shameful, because you survived.
Yeah.
You got through those months, and look at you now, right? So I think, again, we just need to give. I like gassing people up, because they can do it. It's not that hard, and it's so much fun, more fun to do with somebody who's eager and enthusiastic about it.
Now, I know that, with you in the US and with different laws, you can only advise people in certain areas.
Yeah.
But I know that you have a lot of resources to help anybody that they can apply in their lives, regardless of whether they're in the US or in Canada or in Europe. So where's the best place for people to connect with you?
Yeah, well, if website is number one, because that myfinancialgirlfriend.com, all spelled out, is really where you can get in contact with me or anybody on my team. While I can't advise people or open an account for somebody who lives in another part of the state that I'm not licensed in, I'm still willing to have conversations with people. And so, or I can help. And I'm actually reaching out to a lot of women advisors in Canada, because I'm holding some workshops for women advisors specifically. So yeah, where I'm putting together kind of an association of women advisors all throughout the planet, really, because I think we, one, have a voice, we want to be heard, and we can do it as a collective with shared knowledge, shared mentorship. And I really feel that that Americans really do need to hear more from our point of view and how this could be so much more benefit. That's one. Website is the best place. But I'm also on My Financial Girlfriend is also on Facebook, and that's where a lot of our events, a lot of our my point of view gets posted out on just kind of, again, hopefully dispelling some of these crazy myths that really are holding some people back.
Perfect. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yes, I've had a great time. Thanks, Lucy.
This was fun. Thank you. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Roller Coaster Podcast. Want to chat or share your ideas about today's show? Pop me an email at hello@therollercoasterpodcast.com. Don't forget to connect with me on Facebook and Instagram at The Roller Coaster Podcast. Our theme song, Roller Coaster, was performed by The Lucky Setback. Audio editing by the one and only Jeff Quigley of Quigley Creator.